Okay, guys, so let's start. I don't know whether you remember this from AS or not, but in AS we did inflation, remember? And when we were doing inflation, we talked about something called nominal versus real. Real means taking into account the price level or inflation, and nominal means does not take into account the price level of inflation. When you're comparing, let's say, GDP of two countries, let's say India, Pakistan, or let's say Pakistan, Sri Lanka, or Bangladesh, or whatever, we need to look at what we call real measure rather than nominal measure. And why is that so? Because then you can take into account the inflationary effect. Nominal measures are always going to be higher than real if there's inflation happening. You know, if there's 10% inflation happening or 15% inflation happening, the nominal measure will be more. So what is real? Real means GDP. Real GDP means GDP at constant prices, means prices are kept constant. And while nominal GDP is GDP at current prices, right? So we say this that GDP at current prices is nominal and is a measure which has not been adjusted for inflation. And real GDP, a nominal GDP का एक और नाम होता है sometimes in your another name for that in your sort of exams could be seen as money GDP. Money GDP or nominal GDP is the same thing. So money GDP can give you a misleading sort of picture or impression. Why? Because we may not be able to figure out whether the country's output increasing or country's GDP is increasing because of prices. So I'll give you an example. Let's say, guys, let's say your country makes 100 units, okay, and the price level is $1, right? So what's the value of my GDP? The value of the GDP is $100, right? So the value of the GDP, $100. Now, what if I tell you this that the output has remained at 100, but the prices have doubled? Now, the value of the GDP, I'll say this: the nominal GDP is what? $200, but the real GDP is what? Real GDP means GDP which does not take into account prices will be 100, which means we ignore the rise of prices here. Okay, so difference between nominal versus real GDP is in the real GDP we are going to make prices to be constant, but in the nominal GDP we do not. So nominal GDP, why does it give you a misleading picture? Because what if I see this number and say, hey, that's good news, GDP is doubling, but GDP is doubling in because of prices and not because of quantity. Now, Zamin, in the first year, I'm saying this is my base year. If this is my base year, so I'm kind of like ignoring base year prices are. If you look at base year prices are considered to be, you know, like at point zero. So that's the nominal and real is the same. Okay, base year nominal and real is the same. Okay. So if you look at it, when we look at, and I give an example here as well, which is similar to this one. Are we going to move on? Okay. So if you look at the example here, we said this that why is money GDP can give us a misleading sort of information? Because this is GDP may rise because of more goods or services, or it could also be rising because of higher prices. It could be because of more goods and services or prices, and we may not be able to figure it out, right? Now, how do we get a true picture? And there's a formula for it. So we say this real GDP. Let me use another pen. Real GDP or GDP at constant prices is equal to your money GDP, your GDP at current prices times index in base year over index in current year. Remember index from inflation chapter? We used to have inflation chapter and index. So, and by the way, this index in current year is also called GDP deflator. You need to deflate your GDP by this much. Does that make sense? So it's also called GDP deflator. Any questions, guys, before we move on? Are we going to move on? I'm going to give you an example of this, but copy the formula. The formula is very useful for a lot of MCQs that you'll see. And we'll see an example in 1 minute. Let me know if we're going to move on. People at home, if you have any questions, please let me know. Yeah. Okay. So moving on, guys. If I give you this information, okay, if I give you this information, I'll say this, that nominal GDP is 800, and let's say this is your base here. Okay, and next year the nominal GDP is gone to 864. Okay, so I don't know how much of 864 is because of output and how much of the 864 is because of the prices. I know 864 means it's going up by 64, but they also told me that the price index is 105, which means prices are going up by 5%. So I'm going to use this formula to find out. So I'm going to say this: my real GDP is equal to my nominal GDP, which is 864 times 100 over 105. And the answer is 822 point. Very good, 822.9, which means my output is going up by 22.9, and the rest of the 864 minus 822.9 is because of the prices. Make sense? This is telling me my GDP because of output is going up by 22.9 in value. Make sense? So what is the GDP, real GDP? What is this formula tells us? It tells us how much. So I reduce my GDP or deflate my GDP to only look into the rise of output rather than rise of prices. Make sense? Ramin saying, sir, will we use nominal GDP of the current year? Yes, we will use nominal GDP of the current year. Exactly. So this is nominal GDP of the current year times base year index over current index. Okay. So that's 822.9 and 822.86 is the answer. Yes. Got it, guys? Is that fine? So next thing we want to talk about is what we call per capita GDP. What is per capita GDP? So GDP basically, when we're comparing two countries, not only we take into account inflation, but we also need to take into account population. So for example, India versus Pakistan, the population of India is huge. So when you have a huge population, it may not be a good indicator of how your performance will be. You need to then look at your GDP. Let's say if I get my real GDP, if I get my real GDP, I need to divide it by the total population. So per capita GDP is equal to real GDP over total population. Or per capita, if I say real GDP is equal to real GDP over total population. And why is this a good measure? Because this will actually look at our performance on average. Make sense? Otherwise, if you look at GDP of India is huge, GDP of China is huge, but when you divide it by the per capita, you will have a fair idea as to how good a country is doing on average. Make sense? So when you're looking at performance of countries over time or between two countries, it's always better to look at GDP per capita. A great example of this is one of the richest countries in the world is called Luxembourg. And Luxembourg is a very, very small country. When you look at Luxembourg's GDP, it's going to be much lower than that of UK. But when you look at Luxembourg divided by total population, you will find out its per capita income is much higher than the UK per capita income. So that's another important aspect to look at. Small countries may seem to be not doing too well, but if you do look at per capita, they might be doing well because their population is small. Okay. So when you're comparing performance between countries, it's important to look at real GDP because real will take into account prices or price level, and per capita will take into account population. Make sense? Are we going to move on? GDP come in, but you need to look at the average number. The GDP is, Luxembourg actually has a higher GDP per capita, so that's why it's one of the richest countries in the world. Fourth or fifth number per capita. There was a time it was the number one. Israel has also one of the comparative, yes. Okay, guys, then comes your. I'm going to show you a performance of countries in a little while. There's a very important exam question. I'm going to put a star here as well because this is something which is a must to prepare. GDP as a measure of welfare. And you'll see if you look at last 5-year exams, this is such commonly tested. This is not even funny. So what is this discussion, which is basically saying this, that is GDP a good measure of welfare or not? Okay, so I'm going to talk about this. This is an easy discussion. It's more like, you don't, there's not much of graphs or whatever. So in a way, this chapter has these two questions that normally come. Number one part could be, how do we measure GDP? And number two part is basically, it could be whether GDP is a good measure of welfare. So it's a 25-mark question. If you prepare that, that will be a good essay question to prepare for. Okay, guys. So when you look at GDP per capita, you need to look at, first of all, real GDP per capita. But sometimes when we look at real GDP per capita, it might not be a good measure of welfare. Welfare basically means, are we as a society, are we happy or not? Are we as a society have a higher, standard of living or not? Okay, remember, standard of living is different from cost of living. Cost of living is inflation, but standard of living is that, do we have access to better infrastructure? Do we have access to schools? Do we have access to electricity? Do we have access to, like clean water, and so on and so forth? All of these basically are things that we look at, which are basically what we call your standard of living. A standard of living is different from cost of living, of course, because cost of living is only inflation. So when we're looking at comparing welfare of countries, we normally look at real GDP per capita. In fact, we look at real GDP per capita, purchasing power parity adjusted. So let me write this here. Real GDP per capita, purchasing power parity. PPP basically means purchasing power parity. Do you guys remember purchasing power parity from AS Economics? What is purchasing power parity? Purchasing power parity basically look at your anyone? What is the purchasing power of the? So in other words, it looks at your cost of living. Like if you look at the cost of living, some countries might have a lower cost of living. Pakistan, for example, has a lower cost of living. And when you look at because what happens is this: if I look at, let's say, GDP, you normally look at, we look at dollar. We convert everyone's GDP in dollar. When we look at dollar, the problem with dollar would be the dollar is at market rate, and the market rate can change because of various factors. Like tomorrow, remittances come, our exchange rate would change. Day after tomorrow, for example, a war happens, our dollar rate would change forever, right? When you use a common currency, the common currency which relies on market rate, this may not be a good indicator, because this may not capture what we call purchasing power parity. That's why in AS Economics, when we were doing exchange rate, we did purchasing power parity rate, which takes into account the cost of living. How do we get that rate? We create a basket of two countries and figure out whether the same basket will cost, how much will it cost in Pakistan versus how much will it cost in Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, and so on and so forth, right? So normally, if you look at, if you Google and figure out range of countries, real GDP, you will get real GDP per capita purchasing power parity adjusted, which will, because everything is converted in dollars, then dollar rate can't be the market rate. the dollar rate should be purchasing power parity adjusted rate. And you'll see Pakistan performance isn't that bad when you adjust for purchasing power parity, because dollar is kind of like right now the $1 is equal to 165 rupees. One 160 ले लेते हैं just to be on that side. 165, 160, let's call it 160. But does that mean on average a dollar in the US can buy you the same goods as 160? And you realize a dollar will probably when you look at $1 worth that you buy from the US versus so same goods if you come and buy in Pakistan, you realize you require less than 160. It may not be true, but when you make a basket, so purchasing power parity is actually looking at cost of living. And a good example of this in my notes in AS, I didn't teach you guys, but in my was like they figure out how much does Big Mac cost in US versus in Pakistan. Yeah, so there's a Big Mac index that we find out, which is actually a good indicator of the purchasing power parity. You realize that the purchasing power, a Big Mac would probably cost you more in the US than in Pakistan. Pakistan, maybe they might have changed the prices, but the idea is that no, actually, you find out in the dollar rate of the Big Mac versus in Pakistan. Pakistan, the rentals are low, the labor cost is low, the ingredient cost is low, and all of this factor should make it cheaper. They found out Big Mac actually in the European countries was much more expensive. Why? Because labor cost is high, the inputs are expensive, and so on. Given the same Big Mac. Now, why would it be probably more expensive? Probably Pakistanis are charging more profit. But when you look at Big Mac as a good, you will find it to be cheaper. Because वो import होते हैं. You know why they come? Because they come from another country. They don't produce it. Sometimes they come all the way from Mexico. So how much is the same in dollar rate? $4, $650, and how much? And the price has gone up recently of Big Mac, or are we looking at? But Big Mac index is a very good map. Figure out Google Big Mac index, and you guys go back home and figure out how Pakistan is doing in the Big Mac index. So, few years back, by the way, the rate was roughly around 450 or something like that. Recently, Pakistan, probably inflation, probably other factors, and so on. The price has gone up. It was 450. So you know that the price is going up. So guys, what are the problems of measuring GDP? So when you rely on GDP alone, is it a good measure of a country's welfare or not? And what we use as a measure is real GDP per capita purchasing power parity adjusted. Okay, so real will take into account the inflation, per capita will take into account population, and purchasing power parity will take into account the cost of living. Yes, and GDP. Despite that, so China is not one of the richest countries in the world because of that factor only. China has a very high economic growth and going towards becoming the largest economy and so on. In fact, it is the largest economy for that matter. But per capita GDP may not have a high number. Yes, but there are some parts of China which are really developed and expensive and so on and so forth, like Shanghai and so on. Makes sense? So real GDP per capita is a very good measure because you want to look at, on average, how good a country is doing and all that. One of the richest country in the world is basically Qatar. And Qatar, if you look at it, their GDP per capita, but is Qatar's standard of living, being the richest country, higher than, let's say, that of, for example, no, I'm going to take a European country, for example, of Sweden, or for example of Norway, and so on and so forth. And what we find out is basically that's not true. The standard of living probably in those countries, in European countries, is much higher. But why is that so? We want to look at that. So this is what the discussion is all about. So guys, one of the things I want to talk about first. Today's discussion would be two things. So first thing is this, that when you look at, does GDP capture all the output? And the second is, even if it does capture all the output, does it is it a good indicator or not? So first problem I'm going to look at is that, is GDP a good measure of national output or not? Okay, so we'll talk about this two things. So when we look at GDP, we'll talk about, one is your problems of measuring output, okay, and the second one would be problems as a measure of welfare. Why are both matter? Because what if GDP as a measure doesn't really do justice to all the output? Okay, then it would be inaccurate to begin with. Then after that, even if we calculate all the output, is it really a good indicator of people's happiness or well-being or not? So both this will be your answer to your question whether GDP is a good measure or not. And we say this, there are many problems of GDP as a measure of output. Number one problem, guys, is that we miss out on something called non-marketed items. Non-marketed items are those items that are not sold in the market, or that are not reported in the market. So, for example, a good example of this could be voluntary work. If there's a lot of voluntary work happening, will it be included in our GDP? No. But why? Because this was not marketed or sold in the market. Number two, what about do-it-yourself activity? You know, like somebody was mentioning that while they were at home, they had to go and get run some errands, get some grocery and all that. Now, in other circumstances, if you were in schools, the household might have hired somebody for this job. But right now, they were like, okay, XYZ is in the house, so why not just make him do this job, right? So this is what we call do-it-yourself activity. Your mom is probably cooking food, and in the COVID times, there were not many people coming into the house, so everyone were doing do-it-yourself activities. All of this would mean these are what we call non-marketed items, which are not bought and sold in the market. So GDP figures only includes what we call marketed goods and services, which means they are that those goods and services which are bought and sold in the market and so have a price attached to it, which means they will also be reported and they will be part of GDP. Anything which is either done where no money is changed, no money is exchanged, will not be reported. Example is domestic services by people, or voluntary work, or any fixing by any individual, like do-it-yourself activity. Like if your car breaks down, you try to fix it. You don't take it to the sort of to the mechanic and all that. Could be basically an example of a non-marketed. So sometimes, because of the non-marketed items, GDP will be under reported. So output was formed, but our output was created, but was not reported because nobody is changing money. It's not illegal. This is not illegal. But this is where the very nature of the non-market item would mean there is output, but it's not good. So a lot of times voluntary work in many developed countries is become a reason, and also people in US and UK and other countries, because labor is expensive, they try to do a lot of stuff themselves. That's why YouTube has a lot of videos for figuring out this, figuring out that, like yeah, they have everything. Like yeah, कोई भी मसला हो solve, you just Google, you find YouTube have a video for somebody telling you how to solve a problem, and so on and so forth. Right? Then comes, guys, your underground economy. Underground economy is basically your, sorry, how to sit on a gym. Underground economy is also called hidden economy. What is hidden economy? Basically, this is your illegal or undeclared transactions. A lot of times, and that's a problem of your developing countries, that income is is not reported because of taxation or because of the very nature. It could be illegal. Like, for example, if you are making money through prostitution or selling drugs and all that, you're not going to report your income. Hey, I got $5 million because of I was selling drugs, right? So you're not going to do that. Um, uh, Groceries that are done are so yeah, I mean you are right. Good example. So guys, all of these are illegal, and as a result of these are not declared because of very nature of them is illegal or because of tax purposes. And larger the hit in the economy, which is the problem of developing countries, larger will be your underreporting of the GDP. Okay, so first problem, do-it-yourself activities, which is what we call non-marketed items. Second problem is your underground economy, which is hidden economy, which is also. The third problem, guys, is the public sector. Now, public sector is kind of like a problem because when you look at public sector, normally we are looking at output of public sector at cost. Now, I want to give you an example to make you understand what do we mean by this. So, guys, for example, I have four policemen in my neighborhood that I've hired. Okay, a government has hired in the neighborhood, and I each policeman is paid, for example, $1,000. Okay, okay. So each policeman is paid. So what's the total GDP through policemen? $4,000. Now, what if I tell you guys that now the productivity of policemen have gone up, and now we don't need four policemen, we only need three. If you only need three guys, what will happen then? What will be my GDP? $3,000, right? Three times 1,000 would be $3,000. Isn't that true? If I'm looking at the cost of pay, so these guys will become uh, three times $1,000, which is going to be $1,000, which is going to be $3,000. Now, in if you were looking at the market value, what you would have done is this that if productivity of workers have gone up, you would have paid them more. But the government basically, if it looks at the cost of things, the public sector means government, this would be shown as a fall of GDP. But in reality, you only need three people to do the job. You guys get that? Whenever you are trying to look at things at cost and not at market value, then the problem that would happen is that if ever there's a change in productivity, the more less policemen are required. This is showing as a fall of GDP. In reality, it's actually the GDP should not be falling because you don't need now four, but you only need three policemen because the productivity has gone up. So what I'm trying to say here is just that whenever you look at public sector, the value of goods and services are always done at cost. And a good example is national defense. National defense, mein jab aap karte ho, you don't really look at productivity of your army or whatever. What you basically do is that you look at, okay, what's the total cost of the military, for example, right? So some economies value the output at cost, normally in terms of the value of input. This gives you a distorted picture. Why? Because if productivity goes up, for example, and you require fewer firemen, that would be shown as a reduction of GDP, right? In reality, level of service provided might not have changed or may even have increased. You might have three people doing a better job. But when you do things at cost, you may miss out on these things. Okay? So remember when you're writing an answer, your first part should be talking about why GDP sometimes misses out on few things. Number one, public sector. Number two, underground economy. And number three, you have is your do-it-yourself activities, which is called non-market items. Okay? I'm going to talk about this part, GDP, whether it's a good measure of welfare or not, tomorrow. Okay, so we're going to discuss this tomorrow. Any questions about today?